What is up, YouTube? I'm back in the garage again. Took an early night. It's the next day. Now we got the cylinders laid out the way they're supposed to be, so I still got to put these back on. I ran into some issues last night when I was trying to assemble this. I was starving, I was tired, not thinking, and put the cylinders on backwards. So we got them all apart again, roughly laid out the way they're supposed to be. Lifter blocks are now in, which does have to happen first. The lifters are seated in there on the cams, so they're dropped into the bore. Now we can throw the cylinders back on the right way. I don't know if I'm going to film that because it's the same thing I did yesterday. Only make sure you have them oriented in the correct spot. Front goes in the front, back goes in the back. What I ran into here when I had the front cylinder on the rear, this fin hangs up on the lifter block. Okay, so it is machined here on these flats. Stupid mistake, but very easy to do if you're not paying attention and rushing, and that's what I was doing last night. So good night of sleep and fresh start today, so we'll get this motor back together. Like I said, I might leave the primary off and put that back in, but the goal is assemble this motor, get that done, and at least get it back in the frame today. So let's get set up and start jamming away on this thing. So I got you guys on the tripod now. I'm going to start slapping these together. Probably just going to jump to a time lapse. I don't really need to explain it, but again, make sure your front and rears are laid out appropriately. I didn't do that last night, and now I get to do it all over again. So we'll start with the rear and drop these in. Cue up some music and jump to time lapse. We'll be back when we are all done with this.
Alarm goes off at 4:45. Roll out of bed, rub the sleep from my eyes. Throw on a shirt and some jeans and my boots, and then it's time to make that morning drive. Work all day till I'm totally beat. Get back home and fall right to sleep. Alarm goes off in the morning and the cycle's complete. Work, sleep, repeat. Yeah, work, sleep, that's all I ever do anymore. Work, sleep, work, sleep, work, sleep. Somewhere up the line I forgot what I was working for. Yeah, there goes life, looks like it ain't slowing down for me. All I ever do is work, sleep, repeat.
It's amazing how well things just line up when you put them in the right way. So cylinders are now on, rings are seated in the bores, and the jugs are all put together. So now we're good. I already cleaned everything up, so a lot of the tedious stuff that I had to do yesterday, the cleanup and gasket scraping and all of those things are done. So I'm going to throw a fresh little bit of assembly lube right onto the top bore that I just wiped off. There's some crap in there from sitting overnight. So just a quick little skim coat around here on each of the jugs. Not going too crazy here. There's still some oil on there already. Once we're done with this, I won't have to worry about getting too dirty and covered in oil anymore. That's the worst part when you're putting one of these together. This assembly lube stuff is so tacky. It gets on everything. So there we have it. Sporty motor is back together-ish on the cylinders. We're ready to lay out the head gaskets and drop these on. So this is exactly where we were last night when we stopped, only the cylinders were backwards. So head gasket on the rear, and we got our rear head. This time, these will actually line up. So our head will drop down onto here like so. Then we got the 12-point studs up top. Let me figure out where I put my 12-pointer. And I'll just use an impact and snug these up for now. I'm not doing a final torque yet. But we'll just bring these down, get them close. No, I did it again. Just kidding. Let's do some push rods. So I just re-loosened those bolts. So we got push rods here. So I did label these. So I got an I, 1 stripe, 3 stripes for the exhaust. So I'll drop these guys in first. I'll drop my tubes in now too. So I got O-rings down here. O-rings stayed up in the heads. So that's good. Come on. Forgot to loosen the bolt. Okay. We'll start with our intake here. Move on to our exhaust. This does have an adjustable collar sleeve on it for whatever reason, even though the push rods aren't adjustable. I don't know why. It just is that way. I never switched it, so we'll run what it came with, which should make it a little bit easier. They're not adjustable push rods, so I don't really know why they have the adjustable sleeves. Those are just rough seated for now, at least enough to get us in the ballpark of having everything assembled. Make sure your push rods drop down into the O-rings all the way. So I'll seat the bottom, and we'll sneak these up and in, like so. It's nice on the O-ring stuff because they kind of click into where they need to be. And then same thing with the adjustable cowl. Ooh, she's tipsy, little tipsy. So slap these in, get the whole push rod assembly set up right now, and then we'll torque these down once we start doing the head. Rocker box, rather. But it's just a little bit easier when it's laid out that way. So our rear is roughly done. We still got to do the final torque, and then we'll get the heads on. But gets us close. We'll do the same thing on the front. Where's my head gasket? Right here. We'll lay this one out the same way. Grab our push rods and parts.
Seems like yesterday I was 17, running bootlegs and draws and screens. Now I'm running up debt and I'm scrambling to make ends meet. So work, sleep, repeat. Sleep, repeat. A
little bit of a struggle on that one for whatever reason, but now we have cylinders on. So let's grab a torque wrench and we'll snug these down. The torque wrench, I believe it calls for 42 pounds. So I'm using a 3/8 drive. There is a small extension on here. I torqued these down to 30 already on the front. I have not done the rear, but I'm kind of going in sequence. All right, 42. Crisscross pattern here. There we go. So I'll back this down again. We'll do a 20, 30, 40. There's 20. I support the motor because it's tipping all over the place. There's our 20 mark. Bring her up to 30 now. She wants to walk a little bit, so kind of grab it where you can. That's what your leg's for. There's our 30 mark. Now we'll go up to our 42 for final torque. Okay. Should be good there. So now we can start doing the head. Now that we got the heads on and torqued down, we still got to do the rockers, so we don't have any valve train binding up or anything like that, but we at least have the motor back together. So what I like to do is come over to this side at this juncture and just give it a rotate over by hand. So I just pulled the plugs out, but now we can kind of kick this over. With the plugs in, lots and lots of compression. I can feel it tighten here. Lots of suction here. It's kind of trying to spring back because of the compression, so that's good. Obviously the valve train's not hooked up, but I can feel it literally sucking my finger in. I can't really push this over with the compression that this motor is making. This thing should be a screamer when she's all done. But I can rotate these over, make sure the push rods are going up and down appropriately. So it's a 4-stroke. Exhaust is up. Exhaust close, intake up, intake close, intake open. Exhaust is moving proper on the backside. I don't know if any of that showed up. Can you guys see the push rods in that? On the other side, obviously over here, but intake closed, intake or exhaust up, intake open. So I'm feeling pretty good about this right now. Motor-wise, it's a lot of compression, I can promise you that. I mean, for me to be able to rotate this over, I'm struggling on the wrench with just a finger in there, so add some spark plugs. Hopefully this will work. I know with the 883 heads, that should bump that, hence the dish in the pistons. But we'll find out once we get this thing back together. Let's get the rockers on. I think maybe I should, yeah. I'm just gonna slap the whole top end together. The only thing I'm gonna leave apart is the primary. That'll save a little bit of weight from the clutch, and I think it's gonna be a little bit easier to get all the primary sprocket compensator stuff back together once it's back in the bike and kind of mounted. So let's move on to the rockers. Looks like we got some James gaskets here. So these have little beads of silicone already molded into the gasket. No sealer required, which is okay. So we'll start at the front here. Got the gasket just kind of roughly laid out in place. We are going to reuse a lot of the parts. The O-ring gaskets at least. So on this, we're gonna lay this out. Drop your rocker down. I have all the bolts in here already. So we'll kind of cue this up. Now, when you go to put this on, if you look on this rocker shaft, this one is sitting on top of the valve. This one I need to turn because right now this is stuck and binding up on the valve. So make sure you kick those up while you go to seat these. And what is this? This is a 1/2 incher on these. So I'll slow seat these. You do want to go slow here because you are going to be compressing the valve train. So I will have to pull up a torque spec on this. I don't remember it off the top of my head. But man, everything's covered in oil. Super annoying. And we'll do the little outside guys. Then I need a 7/16 here for the little ones. None of this is final torque. This is only kind of seating them. These are going to kind of keep walking around, but we do have a little bit of an air gap over here on the pushrod side, which I'm guessing is going to be from the valve train. So if you want, you can rotate this over, coming up on there. And now we should be off the pushrod. Let me grab a regular socket. We'll start snugging these up. I don't usually like to drive these home with the impact. I'm trying to kind of come down on these relatively even, but now she's snugging up the way she's supposed to. So as you tighten each part of this, the other ones will kind of loosen up until we get to full torque. I'll make sure these are nice and snug. and then we'll do the little ones. All the little guys. And then we got our last little 3/16 corner ones. So we'll just start now, and then I'll pull up the torque spec in a second, and we'll do final torque here. So rocker's on. So I'm going to mount the rear and pretty much get the rear one set up the exact same way. Not doing anything fancy on that. It's the exact same as the front. So we'll do that again on the rear, then come back for a final torque.
Roll out in bed, rub the sleep from my eyes. Throw on a shirt and some jeans and my boots, and then it's time to make that morning drive. Yeah, work, sleep, that's all I ever do anymore.
Google says 15 to 18 foot-pounds on these little half-inchers, 10 to 13 on the 7/16. So we'll just crank down the big ones first on the half-inch. Surprisingly, not a lot of torque, especially if you're used to doing older stuff. So we're at 18 now. We'll come back down now. 12 sounds good. On the little guys. You don't need much. 10 to 13 is not a lot, so be prepared for that. Clicked them all down, so those are snugged up. And then we just got these little guys on the end. I'm only going to use a regular wrench on these. I don't feel like pulling out my 1/4 inch pounder, so I'm just going to go till these are snugged down on the corners. I don't think that should be an issue. Don't roast me in the comments. They're tight. But these are small little Allen head fittings. You don't have to hulk them down. Should be good there. I think it's like 100 inch-pounds or something. Maybe less. I don't really remember. Feel free. Use the Google machine. That's all readily available. We should be good to go. We got our gaskets, and we're going to reuse these because these do not have a lot of miles on them. I'll throw some grease in here just to kind of seat them a little bit better. Yeah. Let's see if we need to. Now we get our sandwich plates, rather. So we'll drop these guys on next. Lay our gaskets out. These little O-ring guys, you got to kind of line them up on both pieces at once, like that. And we'll take our top sandwich plate and drop these right on. Oh, or backwards. So you want to just kind of make sure that the gaskets all seat in. It should look pretty flat by the time it's all done. And we'll just use an impact on this for now. I hate assembly lube. Makes it really hard to take your sockets apart. So we'll just kind of snug these up. Nice and even. Real light at first. Make sure you get them started straight. Cross pattern. And we'll call that good. Same thing on the rear. Let me grab the second one. I'll lay this guy out next. So, 2 pieces. Well, 3 pieces, I guess, if you count your rocker plate. 3-pieced setup. This middle one just kind of floats in here. make sure you're seating on the gasket, and then your upper one's what actually holds it in place. Just like that. You do want to make sure they're all started before you actually start driving these home. Obviously, you don't want to go cross-threading anything. That'll compress the intake, or the O-ring rubber. Again, there's a torque spec. If you're interested, look it up. We're not doing that. But now we got a top end back together. So we are in pretty good shape here. It is still early. It's a Sunday morning now. What time? Took my time getting out here. 11 o'clock, 10:45. So now we can technically time this, get that set up. Maybe we'll go through that before I put it back in the frame. But these are all things that we can do a little bit later on too. We'll see. I think that's a quick little stopping point. I think I'm gonna run in, maybe eat some breakfast, and come back out, lift this thing off the bench, get it queued up in the Sporty frame, and go from there. We still have lots of little odds and ends, intake and exhaust stuff's all over at the shop, so we're not gonna be starting it unless I feel like driving later on and get really motivated. But if we can get the motor back in and the primary and all the engine stuff buttoned up, then tomorrow will be a final prep for fire and see if this thing runs without making a bunch of clickety-clacky noises. Let me run in. We'll be back in a little bit.